The next machine that we're going to go to after we cut it on the chop saw is what they call the Burr King. The Burr King has a sanding disc, not a sanding disc, but a sanding belt that takes the burrs off of the piece of material that we're working with. What it does is it has 3 pulleys in here that goes through, and the adjustment knob to change the sanding belt is right here. The belt doesn't need to be changed, so what we could do is we'll go ahead and we'll save that for the time when a belt is broken. I could bring the whole class over and we could go through changing the belt. So what we're going to do is we're going to shut this. One of the main safety features that is on this is if you can recall from our grinding machine, this is called a tool rest. The tool rest is supposed to be between a 1/16 and an 1/8 of an inch from the belt. And what that does, it stops from grabbing your fingers, it stops from grabbing the material, and it stops from grabbing gloves, which you're not supposed to have when you're sanding. Just like there's no gloves while we're grinding, no gloves while we're sanding. So the belt is going to come in a downward position and not up, because what that does is it could cause the material to jump up, so it comes down. The reason why we don't use any gloves here, you could actually feel how hot the material's getting and know when it needs to be quenched. Our quench is right here, set off to the side, and we will use that to quench it and then keep deburring. One of the things that we have to do is to check and see what kind of measurement we're dealing with. When we first got this, I said we wanted 2 inches and it was a plus or minus the 1/16. Right now, at the edge of this cut is 2 inches. So what we want to do is just go ahead and take the burrs off, and then it should be to the size that we need. If you look right here, this is the control of the machines. The thing that happens on this most of the time is when you turn it off, you leave one or the other one of the switches on. They both need to be off for it to be off. When we go ahead and turn this on, we turn it to the on position and we turn it to the start position. This knob here controls how fast it's going to go. So we're going to go ahead and put our safety glasses on, and I'll explain or show you the difference. So with this going to the on position, the status is that there is power and that it's working. When you start it, the belt will start. Now this doesn't need any kind of hearing protection because it's not as bad as the chop saw. When we stop it, both switches down. You have to have both switches down. When we turn it on and we want to change the speed, now it's getting a little louder, but it's also faster than we should. And that's as slow as it'll go. Okay, so what we want to do with the work that we're doing, we should set it on around 30. Now the control of this knob, it's not RPMs, right? It's like the speed itself. So normally RPMs is how many times it goes around, and we will call that just the speed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in front of the machine itself. What we did to take the burr off is to put a little chamfer. We call it a chamfer because it cuts the edge. So I'm going to go ahead and quench this. And we're going to put a small chamfer on the other side. If you look at that cut, it's just 2 inches. That's what we wanted to have on this piece of material. One of the vocabularies that I mentioned that we were going to come back and explain it a little bit was a kerf. The kerf, no matter what you're using to cut, if it's a vertical bandsaw, if it's a hacksaw, if it's anything with a blade that goes up and down or in a circular motion, you have to take in consideration the width of whatever you're using. So on the chop saw, the disc itself is about 1/16 of an inch. It's worn out, and I might consider changing the wheel so you can see how it's changed, but that's another one of those classes that we don't need to do it until the blade or the cutter is too small for us to work with. You have to remember also we could use any shape. Any shape meaning angle iron, square, round stock, and tubing, round or square. So you could do that as long as we keep it under 1/2 inch, and you have to deburr anything that you do. So using the 2 machines, the chop saw to cut it initially, going to the Burr King to take the burrs off. If you're going to be using a tubing or any kind of tube, round stock tube or square tube, you got to deburr the insides, not only just the outside. So we went through the tool selection, which really isn't a lot. Right now we just had a tape measure. The things that is very important that falls kind of into there is our PPE. It's still kind of like the tools, but it's not, because that's all part of this whole shop. We did the safety inspection on the chop saw. We did the safety inspection on the Burr King. We talked about the metals properties of what you can cut with, the safe operations. Changing the cutters, we were going to go ahead and wait till they needed to be changed. We're going to make sure that the machine is clean, and we place our tools back where they're supposed to. As a closing, we will get this to the point where the next class we will cut thicker pieces of metal, and we will see how to do the complete circle in small metal, thick metal, And we already did complete the angles on the other sheets, other pieces of material that we used.